So now I'm ready to start making some music in Garageband. Now, the coolest thing about Garageband is designed to make music for people that don't really know how to make music. It works great for people who do understand music and know what measures and notes and things are, but if you don't know anything about music at all, you can still create some pretty cool sounding music using nothing but GarageBand. And to do that, we are going to use what they call loops. And loops are over here in the upper right-hand corner. This is what they call your loop browser. And the way this works is all of these loops, there are literally thousands and thousands of loops in here that are all organized by instrument, by genre, and by descriptors. So if I clicked on instrument, for example, you'll see all these buttons up here at the top that show you all these different instruments. And you can simply choose what instrument you want, and it'll show you all the loops with that type of instrument. So for example, if I looked for tambourine loops, these are all nothing but tambourine loops. And if I click on one, they're just different versions of tambourine loops that I can choose from to add to my song. And if I click on the tambourine button again, notice it's blue when it's selected. It turns it off, and now I could do the same thing all over again. I could also go to genre, and this will give me different styles of music or different genres. So I could look for hip-hop loops, or I could look for some specifically for tech or urban or house music or jazz or country or whatever it is that I want. Or I also have what they call descriptors, and these are like different feelings that I might have. I'm looking for relaxed music, cheerful music, dark music, and it'll filter all those loops by that as well. But I'm going to go ahead and just start with instruments here. Now, you'll notice it's still playing my loop here in the background, my tambourine, and it's doing that because once I click on a loop, it will keep playing until I tell it to stop. So if I click on tambourine again, you'll notice it's still selected here. It's still playing until I click it again, and then it'll stop. Now, I'm going to click tambourine to turn that off, and I'm going to start making a song. I'm going to start by choosing a beat, and this is what I would recommend you do too. So we're going to start off by giving my music or my song a beat that's just simply going to play in the background. So I'm going to click on the word beats up here under my instrument panel, and this will show me all the different beats I have to choose from. Now, if I clicked on percussion, these would be percussion beats, or ones that would fall into both categories, but in this case, I just want beats. The ones that are grayed out means those are not installed on your device. You can try to hit the download arrow to install those. You may or may not have access to do that, depends on your level of access. So I'm going to go ahead and click on one that's not grayed out here and see what that sounds like. Now you'll notice this one's called 80s Backbeat 01. There's another Backbeat 02. What that means is these two are going to sound very similar, that just have a slightly different pattern or different rhythm. And we'll talk more about what that means here in a minute. So as I'm going through and looking for these, if I see any that I like, there's a little heart column over here. These are your favorites. And so I can simply check a box and say, well, that one's kind of nice. And I could favorite those, and then all my favorites are going to show up here at the top. So if I wanted to see just my favorited beats, I could click on instrument and then click on favorites, and it'll only show me ones that I've favorited as part of my instrument here. So it's a way to help filter them out instead of going through all of them. But I'm going to go back to instrument and beats, and I'm just going to find a few other ones that I like here. And again, chances are hundreds of beats to choose from depending on the instrument you choose here. Alright, so I think I'm going to use the hang type beat as my starting point here. So now that I've found the beat that I want, I'm going to go ahead and click on it, hold down the mouse. and drag it over here to the left. Now, I already have a track over here called Classic Electric Piano. Yours might be called something else. But as soon as I drag a beat or a loop into this area, it will create a new track for me, and this one is called Hang Tight Beat 1. So this right here is my loop track for this specific beat. I can also click on a track and hold down the control key and click, or right click and tell it to delete a track, so I can get rid of that electric piano one. It always starts you off with a blank one, or starts you off with an instrument in every new blank project. But once you've added a loop, you can delete the old ones if you don't want. Now, what is a loop? A loop is something that when I go back to the beginning here and I hit this play button, or tell it to play by hitting the space bar, it will play. And you'll notice this line, this is called the playhead. When it moves through, once it gets to the end, it stops the music. So what makes this a loop is I can click on the end of this in the upper right-hand corner, and you'll notice it has that same little loop-de-loop kind of symbol there. If I click and hold down with the mouse, I can drag this to the right. It'll keep playing this over and over and over again as long as I want. So again, since I'm dealing with time here, this would be about the 50-second mark. Maybe I'll go about like that. And so now I have a single loop that has been repeated over and over and over, or looped over and over and over again. Now I want to start adding some other instruments here. Now I could go through and pick and choose some other random instruments, but what makes GarageBand really cool is I can actually listen to what I already have in combination with new things to see how they sound together. So I do that by going up here at the top, and I'm going to turn on this little double arrow here. This is called the cycle button. And what this does is this gives me a yellow bar. So if it's selected or turned on, I get a yellow bar. And this yellow bar will just keep playing this part over and over and over and over again in my headphones or on my computer while I test out some other instruments to see how they sound together. I can also put my cursor up here and drag that yellow bar and choose a different part of my song. Or I can click on the end and stretch out this part. And this is just how much it's going to keep playing. So it'll play the first 16 seconds of the song over and over and over and over again as I test out new instruments. So here's how that works. Now that I have my cycle bar turned on, I hit the play button or hit the space bar. It's going to keep playing. And once it gets to the end of the 16 seconds, it'll just start back here at the beginning. And it'll keep going and going eternally until I tell it to stop. So now let's see what some other songs sound like. So I'm still in my instruments here, and I'm in beats. I'm going to click on beats to turn that off, and now I'm going to choose some other things to go with it. I would recommend maybe trying to start with something called a bass, or synthetic bass, or electric bass. These are instruments that provide a nice just kind of background to your music along with your rhythm, beat, drums, whatever you chose. So if I go to bass here, there's a bunch to choose from, and if I simply click on one, it plays with my drums at the same time. Test out some other ones here. Again, I can click on it again, or hit the stop button or space bar to stop playing. So you'll notice that when I was looking through other loops, it made sure that the beat stayed together and that they played at the same time as everything else was playing. as I go through and test out these instruments. So once I find one I like, then again, I can use this little check mark here to favorite them if I want to test some out. But once I find one I like, I can go ahead and click on it, and I can drag that into my project as well. So let's say I found one here that I liked called Zipline Bass. And I'm going to click on it and I'm going to drag it. Now you'll notice it creates a new line underneath it, and I could move it to the beginning and let go. And now I have my Hang Tight Beat and my Zipline Bass 01. These are my two loops that I have. So with this loop, I have this right underneath it. I can tell it to play, and you'll notice when I play, it plays the two together until it gets to right here, and then the second loop will stop. But this one has been stretched out to keep going, so it keeps playing over and over and over again. So again, I can go to the upper right hand corner of this loop, and I can stretch it out to the right, and I can tell it to play as long as I want. Now I could make them both the exact same length, but what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to shorten it up one here. And you'll notice if you look right up here at the top that when I loop something or I drag this out, it has a certain time limit to it, and it'll start over. So you'll notice like right here where this little area dips down, this is where the loop or the natural beat of that loop actually ends before it starts looping again. So normally if you're going to choose how long something is, you want it to go all the way to the end of one loop without starting part of the next one. Otherwise it might sound kind of abrupt. You can play around with it, but chances are it isn't going to sound as smooth. So let's say I'm going to make this a little bit shorter. Now the reason I'm going to make this shorter is I am going to actually move my loop here, and instead of it starting at the very beginning, I'm going to have it kick in at some point. So instead of it being all the way at the very beginning of my song, maybe I want the drums to play for one full loop here until it gets to this point where it starts the end of that loop. And whenever it starts looping again, then that's when my bass is going to kick in. So here's what this would sound like at the beginning. And again, I still have my cycle turned on, so it'll keep playing it over and over and over again. If I don't want that, I can just turn that cycle off to see what that sounds like. So I start off with a beat, which a lot of songs will do. And here comes my bass. All right, pretty cool. The one thing I'll point out too is that you'll notice this one's called Zipline Bass 01. There is a Zipline Bass 02 over here as well. Sometimes what I can do with that is if I shorten this one back up by clicking in the upper right hand corner, bringing it down, and then maybe add a Zipline Bass 02 after it. What this normally does is this anytime you see an instrument that has an 01, 02, where they have multiple versions of the same, that normally means it's the same instrument but a slightly different melody. So if I tried one of these, I could go and say, hey, let's play a couple loops of bass 1, then go to bass 2, and then maybe I'll go back to bass 1 up here and put that back up here at the beginning to see how that sounds. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. The best way is just to throw it up there, test it out, and see what it does. So here's that. Bass 2, and then back to bass 1. So that was kind of cool. Maybe I want to do it again. I could drag it up again, or I could even just click on this and go to Command C to copy, move my playhead wherever I want. Maybe I want it right here, and Command V to paste it and be able to do that. So you can use a lot of these loops together to create your own kind of melodies. So I'll go ahead and do a couple more instruments just to show you here before you guys start playing around. But this is basically how you're going to assemble your song. So I have a beat, I have a bass. Now I need something typically that's going to have a melody. So if I go to instrument again, a bunch of different ones to choose from. Where melody comes from could be piano, synthesizers, guitars. If it's an orchestral type piece, you might have strings where you're going to have orchestra type sounds. So again, I could listen to them individually, or if I wanted to see how they all sound together, I'm going to go over here and turn my cycle back on. Now, I've created this nice little pause before my bass kicks in, but as far as seeing how songs sound together, I want to hear all my instruments at once. So I'm going to move this cycle down so everything is covered in here. And now when I hit play, it'll just loop this part over and over again as I'm sampling some other instruments. Let's try some guitar. Now, one other thing to point out is sometimes the sounds can overpower each other. So over here on the left-hand side where I have all my loops, this right here is my volume control for that individual sound or that individual instrument. So I can turn down and say, hey, you know what, that's way too much bass, or it's too loud, I want this to be softer. I could lower the volume of these instruments so that they will be a little bit softer whenever I test things out, and to make sure one instrument isn't overpowering my whole song. Maybe out of one guitar, maybe I'll try some synthesizers instead. So that's kind of cool. So maybe I want to throw this in here. So I'm going to click on it and I'm going to drag it. And again, I can pick and choose where I want it to start. I could have it start right at the beginning here, or maybe I want to, again, just kind of test it out. I'll throw it in here, have it start right here. I can click on the end and have it loop. Maybe I'll have it play for a couple loops and then stop. And then maybe I will drag it up here again and it'll maybe start playing a couple loops again and then stop. Again, I'm just playing around until I find what sounds good. You don't have to know anything about music. You just know, hey, I like the way that sounds, or I don't like the way that sounds. And if I change my mind, all I have to do is click it and drag it, move it around, delete it, try a different loop, try a different instrument, whatever. So I'm going to go ahead and turn off my cycle, go all the way back to the beginning by moving my playhead here to the beginning, hit the space bar to play it, and this is what I got. And there you go. So again, I can go through and I can add a whole variety of different instruments, or again, also search by genres or search by descriptions and wherever it is I like. You'll notice most of what you're going to hear here has no vocals. This is perfect for background music from movies or slideshows or whatever it is that you want. And again, it's something that I can keep tweaking and say, well, I want this to be here instead, and keep playing it over and over again until you get it right. One thing I will make sure you point out is look at the time as you're working here. So sometimes you can get carried away working on one specific part of your movie, and then when you put the whole song together, you realize, hey, my whole song is only 20 seconds long. So make sure you're keeping track of how long it is. So if I have a 1-minute movie and I need a song to go with that, I can make sure that my song matches that whole length. Now, when I'm finished with my masterpiece and I'm ready to share it, a couple things. First of all, I'm going to go to File and tell it to save as. I'm going to give my song a name and choose where to put it. By default, it puts it in a folder called the Garageband folder, which lives in your music folder over here. But give your song a name, whatever it is that you want, and tell it to save. GarageBand does not save automatically, so you don't want to lose your work. Once I've saved it, now I can always go back to the saved version and make changes at any time. So maybe you didn't finish your song and you want to finish it again tomorrow, I can do that. When I'm totally done, I'm going to go up here to Share, and this is where I can choose how to export my song. I want to go ahead and share it, and I want to export this song to disk. And what that's going to do is this is going to save this song as a file onto my computer. Again, I can choose where I want it to go. I could change it to the desktop, give this song or project a name, and then hit export, and then it will export my entire song and save it onto my desktop as a single file. And then that file is an audio file that I can do a variety of things with, put it in a movie that I'm making or whatever it is I want.